Good morning, all. We are having people arrive, and I'll admit them as they come, but we're going to get started straight away. Welcome to this webinar on Is Bleach the Answer? With me today, I have Andrew Kemp and Denise Hanson, who are going to be the people answering the questions. You are all muted because there are over 90 people registered for this event. Please, can I ask that if you have any questions, can you enter them into the chat section of this meeting? We will aim to get through as many of the 90 questions that have been submitted and onto your questions that you submitted during the meeting. And I'm going to start off. Andrew will do a bit of an introduction into himself, followed by Denise will say hello and introduce herself as well. My name, by the way, is Neil Spencer-Cook, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the British Institute of Cleaning Science. And I hope you find today's session useful.
Is that my cue?
I'm just about to. Andrew, if you want to introduce yourself and talk about Bleach.
Good. Yeah. On a sunny morning, what else could you talk about? Good morning, everybody. My name's Andrew Kemp. I am the head of the Scientific Advisory Board for the British Institute of Cleaning Science. I have a number of questions that have already been logged to answer today, the result of which has given me an impression that actually some of you know quite a lot about bleach and some of you don't know quite so much. So I just wanted to give you a 2-minute overview of bleach and how it's used and what at what concentrations, some of the pros and cons, mode of action, that kind of thing. So it's only going to take 2 minutes. So bleach, sodium hypochlorite. Most of you will know it because you use an awful lot of it in your daily work and at home. So I use bleach at home like just probably, I would imagine, most households in the UK. Sodium hypochlorite. As a household bleach, it's usually between 525 and 615 parts per million, or 5.25 to 6.15%, whichever way you want to look at it. At that strength, we'll go straight into the sort of COSH implications of it. It can cause some ocular irritation, and if you drink it, it will cause gastric burns. But otherwise, it's a pretty safe substance to use as a chemical. It's non-persistent, so it doesn't hang around a long time, and we'll come on to that a little bit more because of its action in a moment. That becomes important in a moment. It will do things like bleaching of fabric. That's where you get the which is discoloration, removal of color from fabrics, etc. One of the questions we've got later on is about what to use on carpets. There was also a question later on about the safety of this with hot water. So bleach is normally used cold, with cold water or lukewarm water. I would not recommend it used with hot water, or certainly not boiling water, because it can produce a carcinogen when it's mixed with hot water. For those of you who want to know what it is, it's trihalomethane is produced when you mix it with hot water at certain concentrations. So I wouldn't recommend that. Its mode of action, so how it works, what it does to pathogens, is still not fully understood. But in essence, bleach is an acid, and so it has a low pH. The higher the pH, the less the concentration and the less the activity. So when we're using it as a high-level disinfectant in places, then we would be using the upper limits of the concentration, perhaps up as far as 900 parts per million, or 9%, but certainly no higher than that. Downsides of all of that, including household bleach, is when it comes into contact with metals at above 500 parts per million, it will start to cause problems with metals. So metals will disintegrate over time. There are lots and lots of spin-offs from bleach, sodium hypochlorite. You can have it as a solid, in actual fact. So that's calcium hypochlorite, which is used in some industries. But also you can get these superoxidized waters, they call them, you know, the eco water and things like that. And basically that is water that has been passed over an electrical current to create an oxidation in the water, which will in effect become a bleach, but at a very, very low concentration. So you can use it on skin and it won't rust and destroy metals. So those are becoming more and more prevalent now, particularly outside the European Union. There's still issues over the European Union regulatory frameworks called REACH that prohibit anything that's innovative in any way, shape or form, really. So that's really all I wanted to say as a opener for bleach. I don't mind, I hope you don't mind me plugging my book. If you go to into my book, there's several pages of information about bleach and the other some of the other chemicals that I'm sure we'll be talking about today. So, are we okay to go into the questions now, Neil?
We'll carry on. I'm going to add Denise to the screen. Denise, do you want to say hello?
Good morning, everybody. I would say it's nice to see you, but I can't see any of you other than Andrew and Neil, so it would be good to see you, but at least I know you're here. I'm around basically to answer the questions about cleaning. Now, I'll actually say I don't have bleach at home in any format.
Oh, wow.
And that is because I've seen the damage it does over the years. So that's my personal view. And I know I'm fighting an uphill battle with that one, but I don't like bleach. I don't like the damage it causes to flooring because it'll actually make lino crumble over time. You've all seen, if you stay in hotels, the bleach trails down carpets. So for me, it's not a product I would choose to use. And this is kind of a soapbox because I want to hear as much as anybody else what we can do differently. But if we've got cleaning techniques, and there's a couple of questions about cleaning techniques, we'll get to those as we go through. So for anybody that doesn't know me, I hope most of you do, I'm Head of Technical for BICSc. And just in case you didn't know, I'm also wearing the logo so you can't forget. So I'll hand back to Neil so that we can start with the questions. And I think we've also got people with hands up already.
Okay, I've got a couple of people in the chat saying they don't have any visuals. Is that common for everybody? Okay, I'm getting yeah, I mean, thank you very much. I think there's a mix of you. The visuals will be down to your own individual settings, I think. Unfortunately, I can't do anything to adjust that. The visuals are there. So I'm not really sure where the visuals will just be Andrew and Denise for this. I'm about to start on the questions because there's so many of you registered. There are nearly in excess of 80 questions. Some of them aren't related to bleach, and I won't be going on to those unless we get time at the end. If you have any questions, please continue to add it to chat. But I'm going to start with the first person that registered and work down the questions that way, and hand over to both Denise and Andrew to answer your questions for you. So the first question we got was, do you have an easy to remember phrase that can be used to explain the differences between products and used for and the process of cleaning and disinfecting? Andrew?
No. Sorry, that's it. No, I don't know. No, never found the need for anything like that. And I'll just, sorry, while I'm on, I'll just clarify that I only use bleach in toilets and in showers. Yeah, absolutely. We can argue about that later, but those are the only places where there's ceramics.
Okay. The difference between cleaning and disinfecting, disinfectants don't necessarily clean. So a cleaning product is meant to clean grime and grease and fats. A disinfectant is meant to kill. So there is a clear difference. But what you do find is they muddy the waters as manufacturers because they make cleaner sanitizers, they make cleaner disinfectants. But in general, if it's a pure disinfectant, it doesn't necessarily clean the area.
But it's a phrase they're after to explain the differences. What you've just described there, Denise, I would say is a detergent and a disinfectant.
Yeah, pretty much.
So detergent cleans, disinfectant kills.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to question 2. How do we do disinfection completely?
Right. Am I okay to go first?
Product, and
yeah,
I'll hand over to Andrew for that one.
Well, this comes back to what we've just been talking about, actually, quite nicely. That's quite a good segue, because for me, you need to decontaminate before you disinfect. So if you want to disinfect completely, and that's a bit of a sort of misnomer, but as completely as you can in whatever area, then you need to remove dirt, dust, grease, etc., to allow the disinfectant to get onto the surface and kill anything that's left afterwards. Decontamination is a very important part of disinfection.
Completely agree with that. Clean first.
Okay, we have a question from a supplier of microfiber mops and cloth, and they're basically interested to hear the latest. So I'm going to slightly interpret that. Does the use of microfiber mops and cloth mean that you don't need to use bleach?
It depends on your system. So microfiber is a complete cleaning system if it's used properly, but it needs to be laundered correctly. And a lot of sites will put domestic laundry systems in, and that doesn't necessarily launder to the temperatures that are required for microfiber to be fully effective and cleaned. So it depends on the manufacturer, what level of microfiber are in the cloths and mops, and you really need to look at the manufacturer's advice for how they should launder and how they should use. What people need to understand is it's not just a different cloth, it's a different way of cleaning.
So from a purely data driven point of view with regard to pathogens, there is no difference between microfiber cloths and ordinary cloths, other than microfiber cloths may, in some cases, if used correctly, remove more pathogens from a surface than, say, a J cloth or something along those lines. But actual kill and disinfection, no difference between the two. I did a study for BICSc about that about 5 years ago, I think, and reported that back to the annual meeting of BICSc, and it shows no benefit at all from a kill point of view. But I do pick up on what Denise was saying about the laundering of these cloths. A researcher called Katie Laird in Leicester at the De Montfort University in Leicester did a lot of work on the laundering of fabrics, particularly in hospitals, and found that, for instance, nurses taking their uniforms home rarely laundered them to the same temperature with the same amount of detergent, etc., as they did in a hospital laundry. So I would imagine that would be a similar area where people would cut corners, especially as, like Denise was saying, you want 60 degrees plus on that. A simple way for companies to reduce cost would be, and therefore from energy, would be to reduce the temperature of the laundry to 30 or 40 degrees, in which case they may not launder the fabric sufficiently, and so pathogens could still be on those cloths when they're thought to be clean and pathogen free.
Okay, the next question I'm going to read out is, what does bleach do, the good and the bad?
I think I kind of answered that at the start, really, in that opening bit. It depends. It's such a broad question. It depends really on what you're trying to achieve, and where that is. So the bad are the things like, if it comes into contact with metals, etc., then it, and as Denise said, with linos and other fabrics, it is because it has a high pH. It's an acid, so it will degrade things over time.
So how do your thoughts differ when you're discussing a mental health facility rather than a general practice environment with regard to the use of stronger products, and obviously in this case bleach?
Okay, well, I have been in the medical field for 40 years now, and as far as I'm aware, mental health does not normally compromise the human immune system. And so I would not classify any mental health facilities that are purely about mental health and not about physical injury as well, as requiring high-level disinfection. So they should be the same sort of level of disinfection as any other space used by multiple people.
For me, it's more about actually making sure that people with mental health issues don't get access to the products, so that they can't be put at risk from them. So there's more safety mechanisms required if you're going to use products that are potentially dangerous to human beings, to actually make sure that they cannot access them.
Yeah.
I think we addressed this slightly at the beginning. You were talking about the aqueous solutions, Andrew, but is there any solution that lessens the health effect of chemicals? And I think what they're saying is there is something you can use instead of chemicals with less effect.
Well, you know, the thing is, we sterilize baby bottles with Milton, etc., which is basically very mild bleach. It's very, very dilute bleach. You just keep it in the solution for a longer time. So the contact time, the time between the bleach coming into contact with the pathogen and the time it takes to then actually kill the pathogen is longer the more you dilute it. And so, you know, we certainly wouldn't give babies something that would potentially harm them. So, you know, you have to assume that Milton that's been used for, it was probably used when I was a baby, you know, it is safe for use. So it depends on the concentration of the solution. But with all of these chemicals, you should have a data sheet that tells you what PPE is required. And if you ignore that, then you do so at your own peril or that of your staff, and I wouldn't recommend it at all.
Yeah, and I'd just add there, really, you should have a cost assessment that you carry out that shows clearly what PPE, what the medical requirements are if there's an incident with that product. And earlier we mentioned about microfiber. If microfiber is used correctly, it can be used with water, which obviously are then taking product out of that, which minimises the effects. But as I say, it must be laundered correctly, and it should be used as a system, not just as a replacement cloth or mop.
This question comes up a couple of times, but why shouldn't I use bleach for cleaning?
For me, it's the damage it does. And it's the damage, we get people that get inhalation problems with it because they do put it into hot water. You get people that mix it with toilet cleaners. People still die in this country every year from mixing bleach and toilet cleaner. And I wouldn't use bleach if I had an option. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, that option was taken away.
I disagree with Denise in the fact that, you know, if you're stupid enough to put it in with a detergent or mix it with anything or hot water, then there's a bit of Darwinism going on there, and the reality is that if you use things incorrectly, that's like saying I don't know. I'm trying to find a comparator, and I can't really. You should use things the way that they're intended for use. And if you want to use bleach for cleaning, I do, and I only use it in areas where there are ceramics because I know it won't damage the surface of the ceramics. Bleach is a cheap and easy thing to get hold of for cleaning, and it works well if you use it correctly. I don't need to use PPE because I use it at a low level of concentration, and my face and my nose, etc., are nowhere near it when I actually use it. So ceramic tiles, toilets, underneath the rim of a toilet, etc. For me, it works well, but then I don't mix it with anything, and I certainly wouldn't put boiling hot water into it because I know the dangers. So if you want to use bleach, do, but use it on areas. And I agree completely with Denise about the damage it will cause if you use it away from those sorts of areas.
And I think one of the things to add as well, if you're using it on porcelains, over time it can degrade porcelain, but the main issue for me is people use it and it hides the lime scale. Bleach doesn't remove lime scale. And lime scale gives somewhere for the germs to cling on to because it gives a more abrasive surface to the porcelains, and the bleach will just whiten it so you don't see it. So, as I say, I am anti. I'm in the anti camp. I'm sat here waving my flag.
Actually, that's a good point you make there, because the black stuff that is particularly in showers and around baths and on bath tiles and that in bathrooms, the blackness of, so actually I wouldn't use bleach to kill that, but I would use it for the bleaching effect on it. So if you can't remove, and sometimes this gets on, if you've got silicons and stuff like that around, the black build up around those items can it just looks bad. And the things that will actually kill that, don't bleach them, don't bleach it, they don't decolor it. So I would use bleach in that instance. And again, it's not regular, so it's very, very infrequently that you would need to do that, but it will, the ultimate aesthetic effect will be better if you use a bleaching agent to decolor them. Yeah.
Moving on then, really, we've just kind of answered this, but is there any place for bleach in normal day-to-day cleaning, or should it be only available for highly regulated special cleans? I think you've more or less answered that in the last question.
Yeah, I think
so. I'll move on to the next one. How can we overcome the healthcare view that bleach is best?
Do you want me to go for that one? That is such a great question, and if you, whoever it was that asked it, if you ever, or anybody else ever gets an answer to that one, please let me know, because I've been trying to educate healthcare for years and they don't listen. They just simply, I'm afraid it's pure ignorance.
Okay, and the next one, I think, again, we've answered, but it says, is bleach and boiling water together unwise? You've already answered the fact that, yes, it is. So is there anything you want to add on that, or shall we move on?
I think that's covered, to be fair. Just don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even if you were to wear respiratory PPE with that, there is no benefit from doing so. I'm using boiling water or very hot water. When we did slightly off on a track, but we did some looking at the effect of hand washing in cold water, lukewarm water, or hot water to the point whereby it was almost uncomfortable to use it, and there was no difference at all in the microbial effect of the soap and water. So I'd have to draw a comparison there and say there is no benefit from the temperature of the water that you have, or the bleach that you're, and plus the fact if you're going to mix a bleach with boiling water, you're going to automatically dilute it, and therefore you're going to raise the pH, and you're actually going to reduce its efficacy. So actually, by diluting it with any kind of water, you are reducing the efficacy, and I presume that that is not what you want to do. So, yeah, no.
Okay.
Don't do it.
And again, I think partially we may have answered this in some of your comments earlier, Andrew, but is bleach safe to use in nurseries and junior schools?
Again, at the correct temperatures, but as with Denise, you've got to think about what it is you're cleaning with it. From a pure safety point of view, bleach does not hang around. It degrades very, very quickly. And so, if you wipe a surface with a bleach, it does not stay there for very long at all. Hopefully long enough to kill most things, but not everything. So, if you were looking at certain pathogens, some pathogens, Candida auris, there's a huge amount of problem with Candida auris in the US healthcare system at the moment. It's killing a lot of patients in hospitals. It's an extremely pathogenic organism, and it spreads predominantly from surfaces. The problem with the US healthcare system is, as with most healthcare systems, they wipe over with bleach once. The contact time for bleach is about 3 minutes, so that's about how long it will be activated for. And so, in other words, that's how long it will be killing for. Well, you need to dip Candida auris in bleach for 10 minutes. In order to kill it with bleach. That means that you would have to re-clean the surface with bleach a minimum of 3, possibly 4 times on every surface in order to kill that organism. So, there's an element of this is about targeting organisms, knowing what it is you're trying to kill. Is there a particular problem in that area? And the other thing is then matching the correct chemicals and the way that you use those chemicals. Bleach is not the be all and end all, as we've already said with healthcare. It's not the be all and end all. So they are continuing to clean with bleach a single time and wondering why there is still large numbers of hospitals that are with outbreaks of Candida auris, which we really have no idea where it's come from. But it's a recent thing. So, the reality is, if you use it correctly, it's okay. If you're using it completely and utterly for the wrong organism, then you might as well just use water, soap and water, detergent and water, and see if you can remove as much of the pathogen as you can. Perhaps even microfiber cloths. I don't know.
I would just add, if it's a nursery school, nursery age children tend to put things in their mouths. So from a contract cleaning point of view, we always used a food safe bleach if we cleaned in nurseries. And as you say, it's not going to be there forever, but if they're doing a lunchtime clean and they're cleaning things the children are going to touch, just be aware of what the contact time and what time will pass before the children will actually be in those areas.
And that comes back to what you said before about the COSH risk assessment. So in your COSH risk assessment, it should say, do not use that within 20 minutes of children using a food surface or a food preparation area.
Okay, so moving on then, I'm going to swap a couple of questions around, but why do most people gravitate towards bleach, even knowing the damage and health risks associated with it, is where I'm going to start off.
I think it's a heritage product. Our mothers used it, our grandmothers used it, we're used to it, we're used to the smell of it. People smell it and presume it's clean, which again can be a misnomer. But how do we change that? I think it's just giving people the knowledge, which hopefully this session will start to add knowledge about what bleach actually does.
I'm not quite as diplomatic as Denise, as you probably know, and I would just say it's pure ignorance of the importance of cleaning and disinfection, and that's why it's the simplest, easiest, laziest thing to go for, because it's easily available and cheap, and that's it.
Okay, so one of the questions that's come in on the chat is, in what cases does bleach turn toxic, which we have touched on earlier.
With hot water.
Incorrect dilution.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how can I use a disinfectant, or I'm assuming the person meant bleach, without bad side effects?
According to manufacturer's instructions.
Yeah.
Follow the manufacturer's instructions, follow the contact times, follow the recommendations for PPE, ventilation, and understand what the product does in the contact, particularly because dependent on the dilution, does it need a minute? Does it need 15 minutes?
And again, I would come down to the choice of disinfectant. What is it you're trying to achieve? Where are you trying to achieve it? Is there a particular pathogen you're trying to get? I mean, if you're in toilets, public toilets, or you know, E. coli is probably the biggest thing. If you're in a hospital ward, it's probably something like a Staphylococcus aureus. If you're in I don't know, radiology or something like that, it's probably a Candida auris. So those are the understanding what's around in the environment that you're trying to clean is key to determining which disinfectant you use. And a lot of disinfectants have downsides to them. So we're going to go on to rotation of disinfectants in a few minutes. But a lot of disinfectants have these things. So it's understanding, as we've already said, with the cost data sheets and all that, which come from the chemical manufacturing sheets, that tells you the pros and cons and the things that you need to do to use these chemicals safely. So understanding is key to that, I think.
I think this follows on slightly as well. What's the best alternative for bleach, especially in a hospital environment?
Right, so I advise a 3-monthly cycling of chemicals, and the reason I do that is that there is no data to support it at all. It is purely 40 years of experience and understanding of chemicals. So in the UK, I know we've got an international audience, so I'll broaden it out in a minute. But in the UK, I would advise, particularly in healthcare establishments, that on the first day of each new month, there is a change of chemical. So if you use 3 standard chemicals, so we've got the bleaches, we've got peroxides and peracetic acids, all of which damage infrastructure. There's no question about it at all. All of them do. So you would, on the first day of this month, April, you would be using bleach all the way through to the 30th of April. On the 1st of May, you would use hydrogen peroxide until the 31st of May. On the 1st of June, you would then start using peracetic acid until the 30th of June. 1st of July, you go back to bleach. And the reason for that is that microbial resistance, so the buildup of resistance to disinfectants, you will have heard a lot, I'm sure, about antibiotic resistance. So, you know, bacteria pathogens that become almost immune to antibiotics. Now, what isn't known so well, and this is one of the drums that I'm beating worldwide, is that actually antibiotic resistance and disinfectant resistance are linked. So if something becomes antibiotic resistant, it will become disinfectant resistant, almost certainly, and vice versa. So dealing with one issue and not the other is pointless, even though because there's so much more money in it, antibiotic resistance is the one that everybody talks about. So by rotating your disinfectants in the way that I've just recommended, the chances are, if something is becoming resistant to hypochlorites in April, by the time May comes around and you change to peroxides, it's not resistant to peroxide. So the resistant organism to hypochlorite is killed by the peroxide. If something starts to become resistant to the peroxide, when you change to the peracetic acid in June, the resistant organism will be killed by peracetic acid. And the reason for that is that the mode of action of the three chemicals is different. And so for a bacteria to become resistant to all three modes of action, well, as far as I'm aware, there isn't one that has done that yet. Doesn't mean to say it's not going to happen, but at this moment in time, I haven't got any evidence at all that any bacteria has become resistant to all three modes of action. For the international audience, I would add in a pre-treatment, or one of the months I would put in a fifth generation SiQuat, silynated quaternary compound. And the reason for that is that one, they're persistent, so that it's sitting in the background all the time, and two, there is no resistant organism yet found to SiQuats, and that's not just bacteria, that's viruses and fungi, so algae, that kind of thing. There's nothing yet been found to be resistant for fifth generation SiQuats. I should hold my hand up and say I have skin in the game on this one because I invented them. But they are available internationally. They're not available in Europe or in the UK.
Do you have anything to add on that?
I'm still working out what SiQuat is, so I'm staying very quiet in the background.
Silynated quaternary compound.
Thank you.
Okay, next one is why can't we use bleach, which we've already done. The different use of bleach on surfaces, so I'm assuming that's using bleach on different surfaces. Is there any advice on that?
Again, if you're going to use bleach, make sure that you're using it at the right concentration for the right contact time, but be aware of the damage it will do, because it does damage linoleum floors, it does damage metal surfaces, and any fabrics it will actually bleach the colour from. So be aware of the side effects.
And paints. It will damage paints as well. So if you're using it on walls and stuff like that, over time, you'll find that the paint starts to flake off. Plastics become very brittle over time. So, yeah.
Is cleaning or disinfecting the most important?
Doing both.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think you can. Yeah, I don't think you can choose one over the other. If you want to effectively disinfect an area, you have to clean it thoroughly first.
And how do we re-educate those that perceive the smell of bleach as being a sign of clean?
You mean infection control teams? How do we re-educate infection control teams? That's the question, isn't it? Really?
Customers, yeah.
Yeah. I'd say beat them to death with a stick. Sorry.
Being slightly more diplomatic, maybe demonstrate the effects that other products can have and show that they can actually be just as effective. Although I quite like that option for some of the ones I've met.
To be fair, it's just about education. Trying to get somebody to read. These are very. I'm tongue in cheek because these are very, very busy people, and this is not necessarily a priority for them unless they perceive an outbreak or something like that, in which case they tend to dig into it a bit more. But you know, it's a case of it doesn't feel like it's broken, so we're not going to fix it.
How do you reinforce the message to cleaning operatives that bleach is not the first line chemical in cleaning?
Training,
Yeah.
and retraining.
Yeah, education.
And can you see a time whereby the NHS will accept alternatives to sodium hypochlorite?
I don't see it. I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. I'm only 26. Look at my hair.
Okay, so carrying on, I'm trying to get through as many of these as I can. Disinfectant or sanitizer, which one is more efficient in a school environment?
Right. So this is a question about you know, what is a disinfectant, what is a sanitizer? They're two different things. A disinfectant is for surfaces, a sanitizer is for skin.
They do say some of the products will class themselves as a sanitizer.
Yeah,
they tend to have cleaning agent as well as disinfectant agent in. So your disinfectants don't generally clean, they disinfect. So you need to clean first and then disinfect. The sanitizers tend to be sold in the market as something that will do both jobs in one go.
So what this is companies using marketing. So a sanitizer is for skin and a disinfectant is for surfaces, and you know, they can call them whatever they like and they can put whatever they like in, but if it's used on a skin, it's a sanitizer. If it's used on a surface, it's a disinfectant, if it's there to kill.
Okay, so moving on. So this is, I think, one more around the ecological side of things. So at our business, we refrain from using bleach-based products when there are other products to use. What are the benefits of using bleach-based products as opposed to the alternatives?
I'm just glad they're getting rid of the bleach, so I'm sitting very quietly at this point.
They're cheap and easy to come by. You know, that's you know, the providing they're stored correctly, they'll, you know, the shelf life for them is quite long. So that's the benefit. As far as effect of benefit is concerned, there is none really. You know, there are many alternatives to bleach that are just as effective, if not more effective. And they will damage surfaces as just as much as bleach is. Not everything does that. So
the next one, I think, is probably down to training, but I'll throw it over to you. We stopped due to fumes and allergies, chemical reaction and chemical burns by very young service users. To eliminate the risk, cleaning time was increased to rinse product off due to this. Now being an economical problem, bleach is avoided. Other than reintroducing this, how can the risks be prevented?
For me, again, this is training. So it's using the product that's right for the surface. What are you cleaning to say that it's at risk to a young service user? Are you using a product that's got a no rinse label? You can get products that will still clean or disinfect, which then degrade enough that they can be used in those areas. So it's where and when, but it's looking at how you're using it, where you're using it, and what you're using it for.
And I would say for the operatives, for the service users and operatives, it's about PPE. If you're using any chemical, you should understand exactly what PPE you should be using with that chemical in those areas. You know, small confined spaces is different to a big open space, isn't it?
Yeah. So in terms of what is the best disinfection method, and is bleach only for disinfection, I think we have covered both of those off previously. We are getting, I'm just going to go to the chat a minute. We got a question from Hamid around As bleach is a mixture of sodium hydroxide, hydrogen peroxide, and calcium hypochlorite, how can this be registered on the HSE EH40/2005 to know the exposure limits?
I don't know which product you're talking about there. That's not standard bleach.
That's a mix of 3 different products. I would have.
I mean,
Okay, Hamid, if you can give.
for me, it's going back to the safety data sheet, which we've said. Look at your safety data sheets for your information. Do your cost assessments properly from there, and that limits the danger to the operatives, because you can select the right PPE, the right dilutions, but you need to look at what's in them. There's not a one size fits all. It is individual to the product.
I think that again, it's not 100%, but my impression over the years, my experience over the years, is that the data sheets that companies give with chemicals, from a cost perspective and from a safety perspective, are far more accurate than they are from an outcome perspective. So they will make claims on spurious claims of pathogen kill that don't actually in use come to fruition. So I can give you for instance of that. It was actually a sanitizer. So the cruise line industry had and has big issues with norovirus on its ships right the way across the world, and they came together as an industry to try and solve that. So they asked for products that were hand sanitizers to be used on the ships. They received, I think, 50 different hand sanitizers, most of them alcohol based, all of which had proven to kill mouse norovirus, which is a near relative to human norovirus. When they tested for themselves in the University of North Carolina labs, 49 out of the 50 failed completely, and the 50th had a much reduced kill to the one that was claimed by the company. So, you know, the reality is that testing for pathogenic kill is a much more difficult thing to do than testing for the safety levels, you know, what it's safe to breathe, what is safe to come into contact with the skin. Much easier to do that than it is to say whether it kills a pathogen and to what extent it kills a pathogen. So I would suggest that in these instances where we're talking about PPE and safety, that whilst I am very skeptical about what they say about their kill, actually from the safety point of view, what they say about that tends to be correct and accurate. And so if you follow the instructions on these cost data sheets, the likelihood is you will stay safe with these chemicals in use.
I'm going to go to the chat briefly. One of my clients has told us to stop doing a pre-clean, which they follow with a bactericidal and virucidal clean, and to start using just Anti-Chlor Plus for deep cleaning hospitals. What are your thoughts on that?
Anti-Chlor Plus is a type of bleach. It's a brand name for a bleach product. I would reiterate what we've said. You need to clean before you disinfect, and the cleaning needs to take place. Bleach won't particularly be effective against removing greases and certain types of soilage. So those need to be cleaned from the surfaces so surfaces can be adequately disinfected.
I'm back to beating
Totally
people
agree.
with sticks.
Okay, I'm moving on.
Supplying the sticks.
Is fogging effective, and does it damage equipment?
Depends what you fog with. If you're fogging with, I don't know if anybody actually fogs with bleach. They tend to fog with peroxides and peracetic acids, cyquats, quats, that kind of thing. I don't think many people, in my experience anyway, have fogged with bleaches.
There is a piece on the website about fogging and about the different types of fogging. Andrew was good enough to write us a piece, to be fair. It is up on the website. It was a while ago, but again, if you're fogging an area and it's not clean to start with, it's not going to disinfect those areas.
Yeah, it's a form of disinfection. It's just, all it is fogging is a method of getting a disinfectant onto a surface.
I think the next question we've touched on in various previous discussions, but what is the methodology? Oh God, I need to get my teeth in today. Apologies for this. What is the methodology of disinfectant in washrooms?
Contact time. Cleaning from clean to dirty, but allowing the product the contact time. So you apply the product from dirty to clean, you clean from clean to dirty, and you allow the relevant time for disinfection to be effective.
Absolutely, and cross contamination is really important in that as well. So you know, one of the simplest but really good things that the NHS and other hospitals have done is colour of buckets and mops and mop heads and all of that kind of stuff. And so if you're using red, it doesn't go into a green zone or a blue zone or whatever, and vice versa. So that's an important part of. It's really simple to do as well. You just buy some red buckets and blue buckets, green buckets, and determine which areas, and then you put on somewhere on the architecture. This is a red area, a blue area, or a green area, and that's it.
Yeah, colour coding would be lovely to have a national standard.
Would.
Apparently, it's not important enough, but you know, I'll
Yeah,
continue beating that drum.
That's NHS improvement for you, because it's not important enough for them to deal with. Even though they took 2 years to do exactly that and didn't come up with it as a national standard.
But the government don't think it's but the government don't think it's important either for the industry as a whole. Anyway, moving on. Right, the next one goes into, again, the difference between cleaning, sanitizing and disinfecting, and then moves on to which disinfectant can replace bleach or chlorine-based disinfectant in long-term rehabilitation centres without compromising disinfection quality. Andrew, I suppose you're going to talk about go to the three different product rotation for that.
Absolutely, yeah. In the UK, the 3 different product rotation, just the same as any other healthcare establishment. You'd kind of hope that in the rehabilitation centres that this is a physical rehabilitation, so you should have a fairly fit clientele, so it might not need high level disinfection, but it will certainly need the standard sort of ward level type disinfection in there. The 3 main groups, just again, bleaches, peroxides and peracetic acids here in the UK. Outside of the UK and outside of the EU, add in quats and cyquats into that rotation.
I think the next question wasn't completed, but I think it goes to facing a lot of property damage due to the use of chlorine. Is there anything either of you want to? I mean, we have touched on this previously, but is there anything you want to talk about there?
It will damage. That's one of the effects of chlorine.
Yeah, so I would. Yeah, if you're really concerned about it, then dilute to below 500 parts per million, and clean twice. It will be less damaging. It won't stop the damage, but it will be less damaging at below 500 parts per million. But it will also be less effective, which is why you have to do it a couple of times.
Okay, I don't know whether either of you are going to willing to answer this, but what is seen as the current best-in-class method or product of surface disinfection without employing a chemical, i.e. chemical-free?
For me, chemical-free is about removing the pathogens and the bacteria. It's not about disinfecting, because disinfectant is a product. So if you're going to remove them, microfiber properly used in certain trials for certain companies has been proved to remove them from the surfaces. What it doesn't do is kill anything that's remaining. So I'm not sure. I'll hand over to Andrew about if there's a chemical-free method of killing them.
Well, the only thing I can think of, but you would have to clean first anyway, is UV light, UVC. And there are multiple machines. It's becoming cheaper and cheaper to do that, to buy the machines, although the electricity required to do such is extremely expensive. So there's a, you know, as the machines get less expensive, the cost of using them increases. So if you're going to go for a UVC system, I would very much look into the cost of using the units, because the last thing you want to do is spend £20,000 on a machine that sits in the corner because nobody's prepared to plug it in, because it'll cost £20,000 to use it. I'm sure it doesn't cost that much, but you know what I mean.
Also looking, to be fair, if they're using UVC, on how they're going to close the areas off for UVC usage. You know, whether they can shut the doors down, whether they need to blanket the areas off. There are considerations to using UVC in general.
Yeah, and the UVC will also degrade plastics and things like that. It makes them more brittle. Some plastics. It's basically concentrated sunlight,
which destroys plastics as well.
Mm.
Okay, so this one I think not quite. I'll leave to you to pick up on. But I understand that bleach was banned from use in the cleaning industry. So I'm interested to know if there is a need to now use bleach in the industry.
A lot of local governments and county councils banned bleach from use on their premises, and it was banned back in the 80s. The pandemic seemed to reverse that decision, but generally a lot of the council properties and government properties had banned bleach effectively, although that didn't stop the operatives bringing it in a bag.
And you know, that's government, and so is the NHS, and yeah, so yeah, government building next to an NHS hospital, and you know, two completely different cleaning regimes. Not a lot of joined up thinking.
Okay, we are trialling various aqueous ozone cleaners to replace our current disinfectant, glass, stainless steel, and general purpose cleaners. However, this isn't suitable for deep cleaning of limescale, grease, etc. We're keen to use products that are less harmful to users' health and environment, and would welcome your advice on how to get cleaners on board when changing products. We have a number of cleaners that don't believe anything will beat bleach.
There are a number of products that are environmentally friendly. One of the considerations tends to be that they have a longer contact time. And basically, the only way you can sell to the cleaning staff that you want to change is when you prove the products are effective. So demonstrate to them how to use them, show them what the effects are when they use them properly. And it is just a matter of training and then actually making sure that that is mandated once you've made the choice. If they feel they've got an option of which one they're going to use, that helps as well.
I've not got a lot to say about that. Lime scale and grease, I wouldn't use a disinfectant for anyway. I would use a detergent for the grease, and a lime scale remover, again, a sort of acidic compound to remove the lime scale. That's about it really from me.
Okay, I mean, this is backing up, I think, what you said earlier, but clinical cleaning, when doing your first stage cleaning, prepping, they're asking, can you scrub a whole wall using one solution to remove the dirt, dust and grease, squeegee off, then start step 2 of disinfecting, which is what we've been saying earlier.
I would add a rinse in there, because just squeegeeing off, you're going to leave some residue. So when we wash a surface, we wash, then we rinse, and then I would recommend disinfection after that.
And the rinse will remove still further some pathogens, so why not?
Right. I suppose this depends on the amount of use, but is there any standard how frequent to sanitize or disinfect a busy public toilet?
What's busy? You know, is it one person every 5 minutes? Is it one person every minute? Is it 10 people an hour? it will vary, and realistically it tends to come down, I'm afraid, to the customer being willing to pay for those additional cleans, because it is cost. Each clean will cost.
I'd be really interested to find out if there's a way of getting people to actually wash their hands after they've been to the toilet. That would be a really good way of helping certainly things like door handles and stuff, you know, on leaving public toilets. I am acutely aware. I generally, on a personal note, I generally take some toilet tissue to actually touch the door handles on the way out of a public toilet, because the in the cubicles. So if you've got a toilet in a cubicle, very rarely is there a sink in that cubicle, so you have absolutely no idea what was on the hands of the person that touched the door handle to get out of the cubicle to get to the sink, whether or not he then, or she, for me it'd be he, actually washed his hands before he left the toilet facility, the washroom himself. So I generally take a couple of pieces of toilet tissue paper, get myself out of there, and then it goes in the bin.
Okay.
It did get more popular when everybody was doing wash your hands. It seems to be dying a death again. So yeah, getting people to wash their hands would be key.
But how daft as a society is that? During the pandemic, everybody's washing hands. Great, absolutely superb, exactly as they should do. But then why stop?
Okay, so moving on to surface types, is it recommended to use bleach on all surfaces for disinfection? And if so, what is the dilution if we're to use bleach for disinfecting a carpeted surface?
I wouldn't use bleach on a carpet. You're going to get discoloration.
It's going to bleach the colour out of it. Bleach does what it says on the label, it bleaches.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I can't use it on soft surfaces, or general bleachers aren't suitable for soft surfaces.
Okay, the next one is, what are the best disinfection methods and procedures? I think we've covered that quite well so far. But the next one, and I don't want to see the baseball bat, I think, what is the best way for infection control in the cleaning industry?
Washing your hands helps. Contact time, following methodology, cleaning properly, and then rotate the disinfectants that you use.
Yeah. I think it's probably worth just mentioning at that point, there's no information at all about rotation of detergents. You do have basically two main types of detergent, most of which are negative ion detergents, very few positive ion detergents. So positively charged stuff is quite rare. So they're mostly negatively charged. And I don't think there's any value at all in changing from one detergent to another in the same way as there is in disinfectants. So you've got the two stages: the decontamination using a detergent, and then the disinfection. So we've talked a lot about the rotation of disinfectants. I don't think there's any value at all in changing from a negative ion detergent to a positive ion detergent and then back again. I don't think there's any value in that. It's one or the other.
Okay, I think Andrew and Denise both have slightly different opinions on this, but we've heard from both of them on this before, but I'll read it out. Does bleach have its place, and if so, where?
Yeah, I think we've done that. Yeah.
And what role does surfactants play in deciding which disinfectant to use on surfaces?
The only I've just mentioned positively and negatively charged ion detergents. If you're going to use a standard quat, or generations 1 to 4 cyquats, then you're better using a positively charged detergent than a negatively charged detergent. If you're using a 5th generation cyclot, it doesn't make any difference. The majority of detergents will be negatively charged.
Okay. Anything else from you, Dee?
No, just as I say, it's follow the manufacturer's recommendation, contact time and dilution.
Okay, is it time to reconsider bleach as a go-to cleaning chemical on occasion, given that it offers reassurance to those not familiar with the alternatives?
I'm going to get outvoted by Denise here in a democracy. For me, it's part of an armory. If you use it sensibly and you use it the way it should be used, in the places it should be used, I can find a place for it. Denise can't. That's, you know, matter of opinion. It's fine.
Summary, yeah.
It's okay. We can disagree.
With a number of organisations moving towards aqueous ozone solutions, how can traditional and new cleaning solutions complement each other?
You have just missed over my favourite one, which was what is the single most important action a cleaning sector can make to help global warming. You've deliberately missed that one because you know my answer is write to China and ask them to stop building coal-fired power stations. So
I think it kind of fits into the next one as well, which is why I skipped it.
Okay. Sorry, go on.
Looking at new cleaning solutions, again, is looking at them, trialing them, seeing the methodology and the action that you require from them. Every site is different. Every operation is different. Does it fit your organisation? That's what you need to look at. There isn't a one size fits all.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a warning sign here for everybody. If you don't take anything else away from today, do not use the quick swab tests as proof of clean. So these metabolic assays that are around, you basically swab a surface, put it into a machine, and hey presto, it tells you how many bacteria there are on a surface. They don't. They are nonsense and a waste. Even though they're very cheap, they're a waste of money. So do not rely on those as being the as proof of cleanliness. Rely on good practice and using, and within that, using the correct chemicals, as Denise has said multiple times, at the correct concentration, in the correct way, contact time, etc. So don't rely on those. If you're going to swab a surface, you know, and send that to a lab for culture, that's an indication of the effectiveness of the surface. And the other one that has some place in it is these UV activated gels, whereby Denise is testing me as a cleaning operative in a room. She goes into the room, I'm not in there. She puts some UV activated gel on 3 or 4 surfaces and then sends me in to clean. Once I've finished cleaning and I'm happy that I've cleaned as well as I can, I then, you know, hand the room back to Denise, and she shines a UV light in there, and anywhere where the UV gel was that I've missed glows. So that is a fairly good way of, in some respects, of seeing whether or not I've actually touched the surface where the gel was placed. It doesn't really tell you the effectiveness of the detergent or the disinfectant or anything else I've used. It just tells you whether or not I've actually missed a glaringly obvious surface to clean.
It can be a great way of training somebody to use UV gel as a training aid, to actually explain to them what you're going to do, and then just say correct cleaning will remove the traces of that gel.
Yeah.
Then you check it with them afterwards and you show them what they've missed, and it is very effective.
Yeah, but I wouldn't use it in general use as a way of determining cleanliness or not of a room.
No, it's just whether or not the cleaning method is working and effective.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, this is why I didn't ask the one about global warming. Can bleach rival the new sustainability cleaning products for power and versatility?
What are the new sustainability cleaning products? I have no idea which ones they are. If you're talking about 5th gen cyquats, no. If you're talking about quaternaries, probably not. But it will be equally as damaging and as effective as peroxides or peracetic acid, which, when we talk about sustainability, I'm not really sure what that means, to be honest, in respect to disinfectants and cleaning.
I think sometimes we need to look at the independent testing for products rather than just what the manufacturer tells you they're capable of doing.
Yeah, very much.
I'm not going to ask the one on best product for disinfectant, because I think we've kicked that one around a while.
No,
We've
I think you should ask it.
Go on then. What best product for dinner? Okay.
Well, that would be 5th gen cyquats.
Do you really need toilet cleaner?
Depends again what you're saying is a toilet cleaner. Are you looking at a lime scale remover, or are you looking at a disinfectant? Dependent where you live in the country, depends what level of lime scale remover you need. I would say you always need some form of disinfectant when you clean a toilet.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Why bleach we've covered. And we've covered why is bleach seen as the go-to agent to disinfect everything. Does bleach just lighten the dirt? Is it still there underneath? We've touched on this with limescale, Denise. Do you want to start off here, or?
Bleach has a whitening, so it whitens the areas. It doesn't necessarily remove. So it won't always remove it won't remove limescale for a start, but it won't always remove the dirt either.
Yeah, and if you're talking about biofilms, which it smacks of that, in biofilms, bleach does have an effect at the correct concentration on some biofilms, so it can be used for that. Yeah. And decontamination first, these shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, we've kind of touched, but I'll throw it open. What do the recommended type of disinfectant that you would use on soft furnishings or carpets following an incident of vomiting?
There are accelerated hydrogen peroxide products that are safe on soft furnishing, and they still have that disinfectant property. So it's about finding the right product for the areas that you're cleaning, and we don't recommend any manufacturers. So, as I say, I'm aware of accelerated hydrogen peroxide. I don't know of any others. I'll slopey shoulder that one in Andrew's direction.
Yeah, I was going to say that the problem I've got with accelerated hydrogen peroxides is that, and there are other peroxides, not just the hydrogen peroxide, is that the potential for bleaching and discoloration is also there, although it's less so than with a bleach. I would use a quat. So generally available in the UK and Europe, just a standard quat. So I would copious amounts of water and detergent, and then a quat afterwards and that will also deodorize.
Always useful.
Can bleach be used anywhere where stains are tough?
it may disguise them, it won't necessarily remove them.
You don't mind the effect on colour and discoloration?
Okay, best way to keep kitchen tiles clean.
Two-stage cleaning.
Clean them off and then, if you need to, disinfect them.
Okay, we're coming to the last couple of questions. If any of you have got any questions, please get them into the chat. We have a few minutes left to address any of them. And I think the baseball bat's coming out again. Is using bleach the safest option for infection control practice?
I'm back to bats, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Method, training, method. I feel like a broken record.
Yeah. And I think the final question is quite a good sum up, really. And I think it gives us a way to sum everything up. But our company choose not to use bleach-based products to help protect the health of our staff, the environment, and the client services. However, we are finding more and more medical sector clients are insisting it is used. How do we overcome this, or do we have to give in to their demands?
I think that depends on the individual client. You know, I know a lot of people in the medical sector myself, and they are outside of the NHS in the private healthcare scenario, not the big organisations, the big hospital groups, but the small independent clinics and the physios and that you know, so a couple of physios get together and they set up a clinic on a high street or something like that. They generally are much more open to listen, and if you provide them with the relevant papers, you know, as we were saying before, rather than relying on the manufacturer's claims of pathogenic kill, if you provide the papers that actually show the differences in kill between products, you can change their mind. I know a lot of clinics, certainly the ones that I'm either the infection control officer for or in some way help them with their cleaning. You know, they don't use the standard products that would be found in the NHS because we've had to sit down. But their problem is the CQC. That's not really something that you can deal with as an individual agent. The CQC is government. A lot of what the CQC does reflects of what the NHS does. More often than not, in the big private hospital groups, the person that recommends that what cleaning is done is the same person that is responsible for the local NHS hospital. They're just, you know, doing that extra bit of private practice, as it were. So you can expect that the private hospital is using the same as the local NHS hospital, and they won't change unless the NHS does. You know, why we, as I'm not going to get on a soapbox here, I promise. It's probably going to sound like it, but I'm not. But the reality is we ask microbiologists, and in my view, it's unfair to ask a microbiologist which products to use for cleaning and disinfection. In a microbiologist's training, for the whole of their training, the definition of a nanosecond is how long they spend looking at disinfectants in real terms. And so to ask those people, but because they deal with bacteria, pathogens of all sorts, etc., they're the go-to person for hospital management. And the reality is, more often than not, they don't know. So they will know about bleach, and they will know about peroxide, and they will know about peracetic acid, but that's it. You ask them about a quaternary ammonium compound and they haven't got a clue. It's not their fault. This is all about what Denise and I have been saying right the way through this, is training and education. Well, just because somebody's a microbiologist doesn't mean to say they don't need training and educating. They do, just like anybody else. It's not the same for all of them. Some of them really do know, but you would have to be in an organisation like the NHS. You would have to be quite radical in your thinking to go against what everybody else uses. Because if there's a problem in your hospital, the first thing they're going to do is say, you're not using the same as everybody else, it's your fault. You made that decision.
Okay, I think Rebecca, who asked.
I'm actually thinking we could have a BICSc branded baseball bat and sell them on the BICSc shop.
Yeah, works for me.
I think Rebecca, who asked that question in the first place, has just come back with, can we ask the client to sign a disclaimer that they will take responsibility for any damage to surfaces that bleach may cause if they insist we use it?
I think as long as you don't mind losing your contract with them.
And if it's their surfaces, that you're cleaning, they're going to be responsible for picking up the bill for replacement sites, surfaces, floors.
I think it's about educating your client, and if you do it in the right way with the right evidence, so the papers that say, look, this is what we want to use, and here is a peer-reviewed paper, or here's something from the BICSc website that says, oh, this is something from a book or whatever. That's another plug for the book. that actually says what I'm proposing will not damage your infrastructure, but will give at least as good, if not better, results than the one that you're asking me to use. So if you want me to use what it is you're asking me to use, you're the client, I'll do it. But my recommendation is this.
Okay, we have had a request for a bat, so somebody's already ordered one.
5 years from now, I'm going to be sitting being interviewed again by Sky News or BBC News or something like that, and they're going to play just that little snippet about me wanting to beat everybody with bats.
Okay. Firstly, I'd like to thank both Denise and Andrew for their time today. I'd also like to thank all of you for attending and for the variety of questions that you've produced. We've only got a few minutes left. If there's no last minute questions, what I'll do is I'll bring the webinar to a close. Denise, do you have any final words?
I'm just really grateful for people coming along today, because for me, the more we can question, and Andrew's given us some great guidance on questioning professionally what people are driving for bleach for. So if we can question that and prove that it's not always required, for me, that would be a huge takeaway from this.
Yeah, I'd agree 100% with that. Yeah.
Okay, so the meeting itself, you should have had a notification when you joined the meeting that the meeting is being recorded. You should get a copy of this meeting in video in the chat, but we will look at getting it available on the website for you to view that way as well. Thank you all very much, and look forward to seeing you at future events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.